Hi, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cracking edition of the Matt Brown Show. This is the Secrets of Fail series, where we're talking to entrepreneurs and CEOs all about the epic business blunders. And with us in the hot seat today is none other than Scott Dettman. He is the CEO of a cool company called Avenica. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Cool, brother. Great to have you here. So why don't you kick us off with the elevator pitch? What exactly are you guys up to over there?
Yeah, so Avenica is a career launching platform powered by data science and automation. We're really helping to kind of map the human genome of potential and then help people launch their careers into industries and companies all over the country.
Mm-hmm. And so who are your customers typically? Are they individuals looking to develop their careers, or is it employers looking to find out who they should hire?
Yeah, it's employers. So we don't charge anything for the candidates that we work with. Our whole belief is that we can be sort of this supply side engine for talent, and so we attract a lot of talent coming into our platform. We work with them, really kind of help them understand their own potential, and then we help kind of unlock that potential and unleash it into hiring partners all over the country.
Amazing, Mather. Well, look, let's get into the meat and the potatoes of this interview. What is your epic story of fail for our audience around the world today?
Yeah, so it was about 7 years ago, so I guess 2016 or so, and I was in my first real experiences as owning a P&L, right? So kind of, I was the guy, I was in charge. Kind of buck stopped with me. And for years before that, I had been in a lot of strategy, analytics, transformation roles. My background's in data science. So I was, always kind of in the room and advising and weighing in on things. But I went out and, took over my own operation, started to run my own business. And I did that. And the first 6 months or so, I went in with a very specific plan. I knew exactly what I was going to do. Before I'd met the team, before I'd met anybody, before I'd even moved to the place I was going to, went in with a plan and, sort of piece by piece, thing by thing that I'd planned, it just kind of melted away. It just kind of all crashed. I got my ass kicked for about 6 months. And in every measurable area that we were looking at, we declined. So revenue, we declined. Profit, we declined. Employee morale, just like one thing after another, we were just going south fast. And so, it was bleak. And again, it was about 6 months. And, I think the first couple of months, I was sort of like, okay, it's going to be a little bit rocky. This is just sort of how it goes. But by month 3, even the people that were like in my corner, rooting me on from a distance somewhere, started to kind of question, like, yeah, maybe this isn't the right thing. Maybe you should have, stayed in your lane and continue to do what you were doing. Because I was in a great spot. I was in this like cushy position, right? I, sort of looked to as an expert in a number of things. Then I went out and, did something risky, by, kind of taking on the different responsibility. And about half a year in, it just looked like I had made the wrong decision. It looked like I had screwed everything up. So it was bad.
That's classic. Scott, what actually happened from there? And curious to know what that whole experience, taught you.
Yeah, it wasn't just one thing, I guess, and I don't think it ever is just one thing. But I got to this point of just, I think, almost like supreme humility. Because I went in with a ton of confidence. I was like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I've got a game plan. I'm ready. And little by little, that confidence just kind of like, eroded, away. And so I remember at one point getting a good chunk of the team together, kind of packing everybody into a conference room and just kind of like looking around at them and just saying like, what do you guys think we should do? And they kind of like, furrowed their brows and looked back at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, everything I've been doing and everything I thought we should do is obviously wrong. And, but, I'm not leaving. And, I have this belief that like, I can fail and fail and fail and fail, but I'm not a failure unless I decide to stop failing. Yeah. Right. That's the point at which, you kind of get marked as a failure. And I just told them, I was like, look, this could be really unpleasant, and I can just keep failing and screwing this up, and we can all sit here and endure this for however long, or you guys can kind of help me, tell me what am I doing wrong, what are we doing wrong, what can we do better. And so I was like, we're gonna go around the room. We like closed the business for a day, and I was like, we're gonna go around the room, and everybody's gonna say something. I don't care if it's like, hey, we have the wrong coffee, or your jokes aren't funny or something like whatever it is. Like, I want everybody to weigh in. And there was some apprehension at first, but like once we got it going, it was mind blowing, just the amount of like nuance I was missing, right? And I think that's the real key, is that like the strategy necessarily wasn't wrong, and often it's not a problem with the strategy. It's how the thing gets executed, right? And it was like the little details, the nuance in between, the points that really kind of made the difference, and stuff that I don't know that would have ever shown up on a dashboard or in a spreadsheet, but it was just like the way that things happened. So it was I certainly I took a lot from that, and I could talk more about sort of what happened after, but that was sort of the moment, I think, that things started to turn.
Yeah. So Scott, if you could get into the Matt Brown Show time machine and have the luxury of, going back to yourself with hindsight at that time when, you were executing things, but it wasn't working out, the nuances in the execution were being missed and so on, what advice would you give yourself, at that time, if you go back to yourself, or what would you do differently and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think the advice I would give myself is just, take your beating, right? Just endure it and just keep going, and you're going to get through. And just don't lose faith, don't lose hope that you're going to figure this out. I don't know that I would actually change anything, because to that point in my career, I had been on a little bit of a rocket ship, and I had been like brought into all these different teams and done all these different things, and it's like I had piled up all these successes, right? And I was like, I've got a lot of momentum going here. I needed to get rocked a little bit. And I think that experience really turned me into, I think I had leadership potential, but I think I became a leader in that instance, because understanding that you can't run a business or run anything on 1 square foot of real estate. Like, it can't just happen in my head, right? And realizing that you have a team for a reason, and trusting those people and trusting their experiences and trusting what they've done and listening and learning. I mean, I don't know that I could have learned that lesson in any other way, because I had read that. I mean, every business book in the world tells you like, hey, don't be an idiot. Listen to the people that you're working with, listen to the front line, all these things. But like, until I really experienced, the humility of that, I think, I don't think I could have, done what we did after, which was it didn't happen overnight, but we started to grow. And then in every measurable area, we started to really, kind of catch fire and do great things. Because when you have the strategy and the passion and the ideas, and then you understand the execution at the front line, and you're getting that feedback loop constantly of like, what's happening, what are you seeing, how are we doing this, you start to gel as a team, and you get 1 or 2 little wins, and then everybody starts to believe and everybody starts to get on board, and then that just creates this energy that just it's snowball effect, and it just you kind of take off from there.
Scott, what's your advice to other entrepreneurs or CEOs, given your experience and stuff, and obviously you guys built an incredible business at scale with a relatively small team. What advice would you like to give other CEO or an entrepreneur right now about the importance of failing or failure in becoming successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing is, I think you really need to sort of know yourself first, right? I think it all kind of starts there. You have to understand, what are the areas that you're strong, what are the areas that you're not as strong. But really, when you sort of key into those areas that are strong, like what are the ways that could turn into a disaster? Meaning, like, I knew a lot sort of theoretically about the business I was taking over. I knew all of the numbers inside and out. I knew all of the market trends. I knew all of the data. I knew, on paper, I knew this thing cold. But what I didn't know and what I didn't appreciate really was the nuance in the story that existed. And again, I'm a data scientist by trade. And so like everything I had done to that point was all about quantitative data, right? It was like, if I can't measure it, it doesn't matter. It was all about quantitative. And that's a strength of mine, right? That's been a huge asset to me in my career. But that sort of quantitative mind was sort of drowning out the story, the qualitative side. And so as a leader, everything you do gets sort of, magnified, right? So like your biggest strengths, your biggest flaws, they all get sort of magnified and then manifest in the organization in some way, through where you focus and where you don't. And we had become an organization because of me that only cared about the measurable things and had lost sort of the heart and soul of the business that we were in. And it really took me kind of realizing that the quantitative side was really important, but it was the qualitative side that I was missing. And I would say just understand, like, if you went and talked to 5 people and they said, like, what's your greatest asset as a leader or as a business person, those are whatever they say to you, those are the things to kind of keep really close eye on, because that's where your failure is going to come from. It's going to come from your strength. I fundamentally believe that.
Sage advice, brother. Tell me, what about books, tools, and resources that you recommend to other CEOs?
Yeah, so one of my favorite books in general is a book called Relentless, but it was written by the guy who was formerly the strength coach for Michael Jordan, and then for Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade. And it's just a great book on sort of how to be exceptional and how to sort of push through and go beyond. I'm also I won't even try to pronounce the author's name, but there's a book called The Goal. It's just fantastic, and it's sort of written as this kind of story about this guy who takes over like a manufacturing plant in the Midwest somewhere, and his life is falling apart, and it just he kind of runs into an old professor and figures it out. But that's another great one. The other one that I tell everybody to read is just start with why. I think in anything that you do, really having an ability to sort of communicate that effectively. Because as a leader, one of your biggest assets is your ability to communicate, right? So you need to be able to communicate clearly, rally people around a mission and a cause. That's super, super important. So those are a few. I'm leaving tons and tons out because there's so many good ones out there. But I read a business book probably once a week. Probably pick up a new one almost once a week. So I read a lot, but I read things as well, but I think kind of the key is always like pulling something out of each one. Another one actually that just came to mind that I highly recommend is called The Score Takes Care of Itself. It's written about Bill Walsh, the former 49ers football coach, and the whole concept is like how to really kind of understand the details and get all the little kind of day-to-day stuff right, and then the bigger things take care of themselves. That's a really good one.
Yeah, that book called The Goal is by a guy called Eliyahu Goldratt.
Yes, that's right.
That guy. Why didn't you remember his name, Scott?
Yeah, I'm the worst kind of person. It is a great book though, and it's a quick read. It's a thick book, but it's so engaging. It's like reading fiction, in a way, because it's just a great story, and it kind of, kind of pulls at your heartstrings at certain times. But it teaches some really important kind of business process lessons in a non-threatening, kind of easily accessible way.
Perfect. Well, Scott, true legend, brother. Thanks for coming onto the show and being vulnerable and sharing your epic story of fail. As you mentioned, and as everyone now knows, I hope through this show, done about 100 of these. So you guys should be connecting the dots at this point. But failure is obviously a prerequisite to success. So congrats on all your success, and wishing you and the team all the very best.
Thanks.
Everybody else, we'll see you again soon. Cheers.